Hello and welcome to Data Debate. My name is Chris Dugan. I'm the chair of business at Mesa Lands College in Eastern New Mexico. And today I'm privileged to be joined by Cyrus Reid. He's the legislative and conservation director at CERA Club, the Lone Star chapter.
Yes,
Nice
correct.
to
It's a
meet.
pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. Could you give us a little bit of a background about kind of the Sierra Club as it pertains to conservation and kind of what it's known, I guess, in the layman's, if you will, and then a background about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Sierra Club is the largest and oldest conservation organization in the U.S. It was founded, I want to say over 100 years ago, put it that way. And it really started in California, and it was very focused on getting folks outdoors and preserving natural areas, like the big areas in Northern California with the really big trees, right? But it expanded over time, and our mission is really to enjoy, explore, and protect the earth and the people and the wildlands thereof. And so in Texas, we've been around since 1965, which coincidentally is the year of my birth, although I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here eventually in the 1990s. But in Texas, we've really been focused on energy and water conservation. And so we want to make sure that we develop in a way that also preserves our natural resources, but also we want obviously accessibility for people to the great outdoors. I'm a professional staff, but a lot of our volunteers are much more focused on getting people out in nature and hikes. And we do have local committees and local groups throughout Texas.
Excellent. And just a note on that, I know the great work that your organization has done in the with like the redwoods. Um, Yeah, having had the opportunity to drive along the California coast, south of Oregon, if you will, into Northern California and drive through the redwoods,
Yeah, and
it's
you may have been to
phenomenal.
John Muir Woods. John Muir was the founder of the Sierra Club, and he was kind of a crazy guy of Scottish descent with a long red beard. And he tended to go to contemplate things out in nature. And so, obviously, we're a much different organization than we were in 1890, but we've maintained some of those values.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Cyrus, if we can kind of speak to a little bit of obviously there's Project Matador with Fermi America. There's some other data centers that are going to be going online here within the next, say, 18 months or so. Can you speak to, I guess, the kind of the elephant in the room, if you will, regarding the water conservation, in particularly Ogallala?
Yeah, and so just generally, we're seeing a huge increase of companies wanting to interconnect either to the ERCOT Texas grid, so here east of you guys, but also to SPP, the Southwest Power Pool. In both cases, there's a huge interconnection queue of these large companies that want to use basically banks of computers to do data, cloud services or artificial intelligence or crypto mining or other things that use a lot of energy and a lot of water. And so the concern is it's really not, the concern isn't about one particular company. It's all of this happening so fast. And in a we're sort of in this period where we've been through a 6-year drought, and then suddenly you have all these new water and energy users coming onto our system. And the question is, do we have the resources and who's ultimately going to pay for that? Is it going to cause water rates and electric rates to go up for us, quote unquote, normal people, everyday people just making a living? Who's going to pay for all that? And is it going to actually lead to water shortages or electricity shortages?
Right. Okay. Thank you. And that's kind of the almost like if you will, a kind of the gatekeeper role that you guys play, right? Looking at that energy usage, how it affects consumers, at the same time trying to go ahead and protect the obviously the scarce resources that we have.
Definitely. And again, we're seeing it both in West Texas, but also further here. I live in Austin towards here. We're seeing big battles over data centers that might want to locate maybe if they locate in a different place, it'd be okay. But when you have a water scarce resource, like there's been a lot of attention down the road in San Marcos, and their big concern is if these data centers come and suck up the local aquifer, it's going to affect the springs that feed all of their tourism and all of their recreational activities. Same for you guys out in Amarillo. It's, are they going to impact the Agulala? And there's some other issues like air quality as well that you're facing. But are they going to affect the Agulala and the ability of, farmers and other people who also use that resource to continue to use it? So that's a huge issue.
Understood. And so, your organization, have you had the opportunity to work with Fermi America, for instance, just as an example? Or how do you see that?
Yeah, so no, unfortunately, we haven't. We've been more in somewhat of an adversarial
Yeah.
relationship. I did travel out to Amarillo uh, late last year to try to meet up with their representative. It didn't work out. I went to their offices. I couldn't make it work just to learn more about the project and what their proposal was. We did have some of our members at the public meeting that was held on the air permits in December, and we did file comments and had big concerns about the large amounts of gas plants coming in a single area and how that might impact air quality. But also remember, gas plants also use water. And so for Fermi America, we're not just talking about the water that will be used by any clients they get for data centers. We're also talking about the water to run the gas turbines that use steam. So they're using combined cycle plants. But eventually they want to also add nuclear power, and nuclear obviously is a big user of water. And it's mainly for cooling. So it's not that all water goes away, but you're still having to pull it out of the Agulala or get it from the wastewater treatment plant from the city of Amarillo. So it's still a huge water resource issue as well as an air quality issue for the gas plants and the emissions that they send out into the atmosphere.
Right. And if I may, we've had a lot of different guests on, and so perhaps I can go ahead and speak to some of the different guests and maybe make a connection for you so you can have those conversations to better maybe work together versus, kind of, yeah, from that perspective. So, but if I may, Cyrus, I'd like to go ahead and speak to kind of the behind the meter mentality. And so again, we're an entity. This particular show, we're looking at it from all different angles, the pros and the cons, and that's why we wanted to get your organization on to be able to, since the history of your organization was always to protect and look out for not only the consumer but the person that wants to enjoy our bosques in Spanish, or our outdoors, our forests, or those types of things. So from the behind the meter perspective, wouldn't you look at that in particular, this project? Because a lot of the projects that are out there are going, in front of the meter, on the other side of the meter, where they are actually consuming. Where in this particular case, let's just say the Fermi America example versus kind of a Duos Energy or some of those other ones that are for hyperscalers like Google, they're actually consuming from the grid, or ERCOT, or what have you. How do you go ahead and kind of weigh it? Again, understanding gas, understanding air quality issues, understanding nuclear. How do you kind of balance it out when you have a project like Fermi that's going to be behind the meter?
Yeah, and these aren't black and white issues, right? The Sierra Club position is not that we should stop all data centers. That's not realistic, frankly. It's while data centers are being developed, we need to make sure they meet the highest standards for air quality, for water use, and energy use. And so you're right, it's less of a direct impact on electric users if they're behind the meter because they're not then using the transmission service and they're not taking up power from nearby power plants that are currently on the system. So that is positive. The concern is they are going big on gas. So they have a permit which includes over 90 turbines, which was granted by the TCQ. Now there is a group that's going to court to try to stop or delay or get a contested case hearing on that. but they've now put in a second application just earlier this month for the first application was for roughly 6,000 megawatts of new gas, which is a gigantic, enormous amount of new gas. And this latest one is 5,000 megawatts. So that is it is a very big proposal, and that is a lot of gas plants to all be in one place. And we at Sierra Club, I know people have different views on this, but we believe strongly that the climate is changing, and these gas plants, if you take it together, it's they would have the potential to emit for the first set of permits about 24 million tons of carbon dioxide, and for the second about 16 million tons of carbon dioxide. So add that together, that's 40 million tons per year of new carbon dioxide going into the atmosphere when our planet is already reeling from these emissions. So um, and that won't impact anyone locally. That more impacts the climate itself. But then there are also things like NOx emissions and sulfur dioxide emissions and volatile organic compounds and particulate matter, which can impact people locally. So it's a lot of gas to go onto the system at once. And I know that, realistically, this isn't going to come all at once. It's going to be done in stages. But
Right.
that's a big concern is will all those PM 2.5 and NOx, could that impact smog levels in Amarillo? We don't know. In our comments to TCQ, we felt like their modeling wasn't done correctly, and that gets into a lot of details that we may not be able to cover in the show. But we were concerned about how they did the modeling and what assumptions they made, because TCQ in its history has never permitted that much gas in one location. It tends to be, you know, a combined cycle plant over here or a single turbine over here, and it's not as much of a concern because we're talking about lower numbers. These are big numbers of gas plants being put in one location. Depending on the wind, will they impact folks in North Amarillo or to the towns to the east of them? That's a big question. That's why we do have some groups that have asked for a contested case hearing and are trying to get that as we speak, because they believe that all of the um, pollution control aspects aren't in place. So you wouldn't have those concerns if they were building solar and storage facilities alone. You wouldn't have those concerns because there wouldn't be those air quality impacts. But the fact that they're going big on gas means that's a lot of potential emissions in a specific area. And again, if
Right.
it was one plant, maybe it wouldn't be such a big concern, but it's the fact that it's so many that could cumulatively have an impact on the local population and local wildlife.
Right. Understood. Yeah, and it's always like a fine line to walk, if you will, because I could make the kind of maybe the opposition argument to, well, I want low latency and I want to go ahead and make sure that with this AI revolution, let's just say, that's on the horizon or that's happening now, I want to uh, be able to participate and not have to maybe wait hours or many minutes or what have you, trying to do an AI query, if you will, or run a prompt, if you will, and then I want to be able to maybe participate in some of the jobs in the region and some of these other things. So I see for your organization, it's a very tough balance to be able to kind of have your position, but at the same time be able to justify it. Not in many of the things you said. I completely agree with. You got to balance these things, but at the same time, how do you speak to somebody who's maybe in the construction industry or perhaps maybe is starting a tech company and they want to move their family even from Austin, which some people would argue now is becoming very expensive, to maybe other areas in Texas, still have that kind of that Texas uh, protections, if you will, that foster energy in some other industries. But how do you kind of balance that as an organization?
Yeah, those are difficult questions. So right now, Texas is very unique in that we have a legislative session every other year. So on the odd years, unlike say New Mexico, where you are, where they have it every year. So we are in the period where the legislature is meeting and having these discussions about what are the appropriate requirements or guardrails on this development. Like, no, I mean, there are some communities obviously who are completely against any AI or data centers. That's not the Sierra Club position.
Right.
Um, but what are the guardrails we need in place and guardrails for the cost of water and energy to make sure it's not put on people's backs, but also some guardrails around how do we permit these new gas plants or of maybe even more concern are the diesel backup generators. Like what standards do they have to meet? Because again, one backup diesel generator that you might put in your backyard, not that big a deal. But when you have these gigantinormous, to use the technical terms, data centers who maybe have lots of these diesel generators for the period when the electricity goes down so they can continue to operate, that's a lot of potential emissions right there at once. And so, do we have the standards in place? Should we require all new data centers to use um, cooling technologies that don't waste water? So, don't use evaporative cooling. Those, companies on their own will are doing some of that already, but should we have some minimum standards in place? And those are the discussions we're having right now, and we're kind of developing that.
Yeah.
Last legislative session, the legislature within ERCOT did pass a big bill called SB6. It doesn't affect Amarillo and the SPP, but it did put some guardrails in place saying large new loads over 75 megawatts have to pay for interconnection studies. They have to put up some money up front. They're going to do a study on how we allocate transmission costs to make sure that the rest of us aren't, stuck with those. Texas can't really pass a law for all of SPP because SPP goes along, multiple jurisdictions, but we could put in some guardrails for West Texas to make sure people are protected. So those are the types of things we're looking at. So we're not trying to stop the local tech company or the construction company. We're saying we need to develop in a way that doesn't destroy the natural resources the rest of us need and the critters, right? Because if you draw down aquifers, that impacts springs that local critters and fishermen and others depend on. So there's a balance there.
Okay, great. And you know, when you say some of these diesel emissions issues and NOx and VOCs and all those, yeah, it's interesting because I think the federal government just removed some of the diesel emission requirements. So it's a tough environment right now,
Yeah, so
on
there are
different
some,
levels.
just to give an example, you have some states becoming on their own, becoming more restrictive and saying if you're going to use diesel generator, it has to meet tier 4 requirements, which are the cleanest, or you use a gas generator, or you use battery storage or something
Right.
else. But TCQ doesn't have that position, so we allow much higher emissions. And you're right, the federal government is moving in a uh, they've decided, or someone's decided that climate change is a hoax. They haven't been implementing, they've been delaying implementing the standards around oil and gas methane emissions. They've been delaying uh, requiring states to really develop their plans around particulate matter emissions. So they're really moving in a way that is less costly to industry, but more costly for the health for the rest of us. So
Right.
we don't agree with those rollbacks, and there are various lawsuits going on, which we don't have time to talk about. But
True, true,
but,
true.
Texas pride. I can say it, having been here for more than 30 years now. I'm a Texan, raised 3 kids here, pay my property taxes here, just don't have a Texas accent. But we, we can, Texas can do stuff, right? We are a state that believes in independence. We believe in coming up with good standards. We believe we can be, just like we're no, number one in oil and gas production, we're now number one in wind. We're now number one in solar. We're going to soon be number one in battery storage technology. So we can do it, but there needs to be, some guardrails so we protect people as we do those things.
Yeah, that's so true. I like the way you stated that because I think Texas gets a bad rap about so many things, and uh, the outdoors is one of them. And it's I can give plenty of examples as
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
sure
we
you can
haven't
too.
invested as much as we should as a state in public lands. That being said, a couple years ago, the voters did approve a 1 billion centennial fund. We just opened up our first new state park, Palo Pinto, west of Fort Worth. And I know they're purchasing additional. One of my favorite places near you guys is Caprock Canyons, and they've
Yes.
just approved expanding Caprock Canyons. They're buying some land around it. Obviously Palo Duro is another beautiful spot. We need to preserve those places and expand them.
Absolutely.
New Mexico is amazing for public lands, but
Yes.
we
Yes.
we are a private land state, but we can do more to expand public lands. We can also do more to help landowners, farmers and ranchers, preserve their lands and then, dedicate some conservation easements for, that the public can enjoy as well. So we can do things on private land as well.
Excellent. Well, I would like to end by saying that from some of the guests that we've had on, I know that we're supposed to get some updates from some of the different organizations. I know there's some things about hybrid cooling that are out there, in particular, about what Fermi's working on, and I'm sure others, are going to adopt some of these technologies, especially with obviously AI data centers. But can you leave us with something, Cyrus, as far as again, you covered so many areas. Thank you so much. But would you like to leave us with something in
Yeah, I mean,
particular?
I think the other idea that we're exploring is the idea of mitigation. That when these companies come in, they're coming in primarily to rural areas, and maybe those rural areas haven't had a lot of investment. So maybe, some people would call it a community benefit agreement. I'd call it a mitigation fund, but making sure these companies are tied into the community and they're helping, if they're leading to more water use and energy use, maybe they're then investing in projects to create more water or to lower energy use locally. So they could be helping to weatherize people's homes or even preserve land that helps protect the aquifer. So there are things that these companies can do, and maybe they can be voluntary, or maybe we can pass a law saying they have to do it because this is a new industry that didn't exist, right? I mean, we've always had smaller data centers, but these hyperscale data centers, AI, crypto mines are just on a scale that we've never seen before. And so to me, part of your the contract you would have with your community is to then help mitigate any impacts you have. And so that could be something that we could explore, and whether that's done voluntarily or through a law at the legislature. We'll see what happens. But some of these companies are taking steps in that direction, but making sure they all do is going to be really important. Otherwise, we're going to look back 10 years from now and we're going to continue to be in a drought, and our electricity and water costs are going to go way up.
Well, again, Cyrus, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate the Sierra Club's, conservation role and everything that you do. And thank you, sir.
Yeah, and our website is sierraclub.org/Texas. You can find information about our staff and some of our programs and meetings.